As the credits rolled on Final Fantasy Tactics, I said on stream that this game has some of the highest highs of any game I've played on stream, and also made me rage more than any other. Final Fantasy Tactics is a tough game that will not pull its punches, but the reason that so many still regard this as an all-time classic is because the story, music, and yes, even the gameplay much of the time is so well done that the experience is worth the occasional hassle. At least that was the case for me, but I do think that if you are a newcomer to the strategy genre, this is not the place to start. On the other hand, strategy veterans should have a great time. I have plenty I can say on this game, so I won't keep you waiting. Final Fantasy Tactics is a strategy RPG developed and published by Square. The game was directed and written by a newcomer to Square, Yasumi Matsuno, who was coming off his work on the Ogre Battle series and specifically Tactics Ogre in 1995. The game would serve as a spin-off for the Final Fantasy series, utilizing much of the same spell names and shared settings, creatures, and themes. This would later come full circle when Final Fantasy XII was set in the land of Ivalice, originally conceived for Tactics. The original game came out for the PlayStation in 1997 in Japan and 1998 in North America. A later enhanced port was released in 2007 for the PSP titled Final Fantasy Tactics: The War of the Lions. By 2011, the game had sold over 2.4 million copies and garnered a reputation as an amazing game with a standout story. Unfortunately, the game was unavailable to many players, which is one of the reasons that the announcement of the remastered Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles was so well received. This new remaster divided the game into a faithful recreation of the original, called Classic Mode, and an enhanced Ivalice Chronicles version with gameplay updates, improved graphics, voice acting, and more quality of life features. From what I can tell on Classic Mode, it is a pretty faithful recreation of the original game. It does have to be a recreation though, because they lost the original source code, and the Ivalice Chronicles, which is the one I actually played through, is a very well updated version. The Ivalice Chronicles was released on September 30th, 2025 for Switch, Switch 2, PS4, PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Now, pretty much everyone can play Final Fantasy Tactics if they wish to. It was announced to have sold over 1 million copies in the first 3 months of release, which has raised hopes for other Final Fantasy Tactics projects in the future. Reception was strong for this new release, as it had been for the previous versions, but certain choices such as not including features from the War of the Lions release were questioned, to which the developers stated they wanted to focus on recreating the original experience. In the Kingdom of Ivalice, a succession war is brewing as a proxy war between the two most powerful dukes of the land. This conflict will become known as the War of the Lions, but our perspective is not on the lions in question, but a different historical figure whose contribution to resolving the conflict has been ignored and written away by history. We play as that individual, Ramza Beowulf, youngest son of the noble Beowulf family, as he learns and grows over the years before and during the war. The story touches on class differences, the constant war for power among the higher-ups that only results in the loss of lives and livelihoods of those caught in between, and on the reality of history being written by the victors. This is the strongest part of Final Fantasy Tactics. The game does not shy away from the lengths some people go to for power, or how someone with noble intentions can be set down a path where those intentions get more and more twisted. The political intrigue of the game permeates every interaction, which means that it may be a good idea to brush up on your encyclopedia so you know exactly who everyone is talking about. This game's plot is schemes on top of plans, on top of conspiracies. All of that, though, wouldn't have the same impact if there weren't people trying to do good, people trying to achieve peace and looking out for the interests of others. There is humanity in all of Final Fantasy Tactics, both the good and the bad. We do have several likable characters to propel us forward as they seek a way through the mess to a place where things are better after the end of the conflict. Will they succeed? Well, they're going to try, but they might not like what it costs them in the end. There are two main styles of turn-based strategy battles. You've got games like Fire Emblem and XCOM, which have all of your army members move and act, and then all the enemies, and then you have games like Tactics Ogre, where the turns are interwoven between enemies and allies. Final Fantasy Tactics goes for the latter format. Each battle, you pick between 4 to 5 allies to put out on the field to face off against your enemies. I was honestly surprised that the game never increased the number of allies you could take into battle, but I guess that's the Fire Emblem experience warping my expectation of just how large my army can become. The only time there will be more than 4 to 5 allies out there are when you have guest characters. Once you are out there, you have a mission goal, usually insta-kill all the enemies, but sometimes there's a specific boss that you need to beat, and if you do, then you win. Little piece of advice, if that option shows up, do it. The game loves to set you up with a stiff challenge that will sweep you aside if you give them the time to do so. Find the advantages where you can, take the high ground, use status effects to boost your allies and impede your enemies, manipulate your spells, and time your abilities to down your enemies. Get your thinking hat out because this game will test you. I found the game challenging, and while I'm not a tactical genius, this is one of the few genres I will play games on harder than normal difficulty. If you are a first-time strategy RPG player, I would suggest you work up to Final Fantasy Tactics, perhaps with games like Triangle Strategy instead. For those who love a strategy challenge though, you can't go wrong here. The small battle sizes keeps them easy to get into and try, which I appreciated given the difficulty of some of them and the realization that you're going to have to try them a few times to see what works. The exception are the sequence battles, where you have to complete several battles in a row without being able to visit shops or complete overworld tasks in between. You get healed up and revived and can adjust equipment and jobs in between those battles. If that weren't the case, then whew boy, would those sequences be vicious. The shorter battles also allow for easier grinding up when you wish to. As your characters fight, they will gain experience and level up. That's great and all, but the overall level of your characters is not nearly as important as their job level and job skills. There are plenty of jobs in this game to pick from, and that's not even counting the unique ones certain characters have as a base job. The jobs have some inherent skills, but most of them you will learn with job points that you accumulate during battles. I suggest switching between jobs and finding great synergies, because on top of the abilities that you get from the jobs, you can also equip the skills of another job to your character. Just one, though. For instance, one of my army was a ninja as his base job during the endgame sequence, and I equipped his previous job of monk to him as well to take advantage of the various useful healing abilities that class gave. There's a wild amount of combinations, which also means that you can seriously break the game if you find a particularly strong combo and grind up those job points to get all those skills. To those players who love playing around and finding those optimal or simply nuts character builds in a strategy game, then I can think of no better recommendation than Final Fantasy Tactics. It's right up there with Unicorn Overlord in the department of being able to really focus in on those. It's just that you get a larger army in Unicorn Overlord. You get characters either from recruiting named characters from the main story, or recruiting generic characters from towns that you can rename if you wish to. The characters, not the towns. Or if you give your chat the chance to, in my case. That's where some of these names came from. Something to pay attention to is each character's bravery and faith. Bravery is a stat that helps with physical abilities, and faith helps with magical abilities. 70 is the highest you can get baseline with a generic unit, and you can boost it permanently, but I won't spoil how you can do that, just play around with it to find out. The towns are also where you will buy weapons and armor. Since levels don't do much for your characters, having great equipment becomes even more vital, and in order to buy equipment, you need money. Where can you get the money? Why, by sending out your army on errands from the tavern. They'll be adventuring and hunting down treasure and come back with the spoils. For those who played the original, this could be a pain, since you have to go back to cities and towns to get the rewards, and you couldn't skip random battles, but in the Ivalice Chronicles, you can skip random battles. A great quality of life improvement in my opinion. I didn't even realize that was a thing until later in the game, and then I thought about how exhausting it would have been to do what I did with the errands. Beyond that, you also occasionally have side stories that give you the chance to recruit new allies or get other useful things. This game has plenty to do across the 4 chapters of the game. As for presentation, Final Fantasy Tactics' visual style is chibi-like, with the characters' outfits being more the focus than their faces or expressions. While the game is colorful and has good scenery, the character designs are rather generic, with characters sometimes being indistinguishable from each other in the character models. The character portraits are a different matter and tend to be very good. By contrast, the monster designs have greater variety in their design. In War of the Lions, there are also some occasional cutscenes that give more character model details, expressions, and distinctions in those scenes. Those are included in a sub-menu in the Ivalice Chronicles, which strikes me as an odd choice. The developers stated it was about retaining original feeling, but that's what the faithful remake part of this release is, not the Ivalice Chronicles part. Or am I missing something? However, at least they're included. Musically, the game has a strong soundtrack with particular note for the tracks that accompany the tense moments of the game, which are suitably eerie and dissonant. Then you have the character themes, which fit each of the characters to a T. Brilliant work from Hitoshi Sakamoto and Masaharu Iwata. The voice acting, which is a new addition for the Ivalice Chronicles, was excellent. Drawing from mainly a European group for the English dub, the performances captured the subtlety of the interactions while still resonating with rich intention and emotion. These are the vocal performances that can capture the mind even without the accompanying expressions from the characters. As for the UI and UX, this most recent release does a lot to improve on both fronts. You can now speed up battles, autosave has been enabled in classic mode and the Ivalice Chronicles. The aforementioned skipping random battles is a blessing. You can more easily check equipment and items available in towns, the army is expanded to 50 units from 16, and the game adds new difficulties, one easier and one harder. Some of these are only available in the Ivalice Chronicles and not classic mode, but it's very helpful. However, there are still issues with the UI and UX of the game. My main issue is with the camera view during battle, which makes it so there are certain tiles you cannot see no matter what, even when you're trying to move on to them. Oh, and the fact that 0.5 height difference prevents certain abilities from reaching my allies. I almost lost characters permanently because they got knocked out in a spot my monk couldn't revive them from because the height difference was 0.5. Very inconvenient. I also think it would have been great if they could have given players the option to pick and choose what improvements they wanted in a custom mode rather than the all-or-nothing approach between the Ivalice Chronicles and classic mode. Granted, that would probably be very difficult to program, so I understand why they might not have gone down that path. The presentation overall is still very good. Final Fantasy Tactics is a game that continues to strike a chord with audiences nearly 30 years later because of its timely story about wealth and power disparity, as well as a gameplay system that will stretch you until either you or it breaks. For strategy and story lovers, this game is a must-play, and I do recommend it to others as well, especially with the new lower difficulty to ease entry. But I stand by my warning, this is far from an easy game. You have been warned, and I hope you enjoy it if you give the game a try. Thank you to Square Enix for the coverage code. Please leave this video a like if you enjoyed, comment below your thoughts on Final Fantasy Tactics, whether it's the original, War of the Lions, or the Ivalice Chronicles, and subscribe if you have not already as we prepare for more fun in 2026. I am running a giveaway for Final Fantasy Tactics the Ivalice Chronicles for a Steam copy on Blue Sky. If you are not following me there, you should do so you can get a chance to win a copy. Then you can spend your February playing the game. What? February? Oh dear, time is racing again. Thank you for watching. Have a great day, and happy gaming.